You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday here on Phoenix 22.5 FM, but of course it's Sunday the 20th if you're checking us out live here on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, all those places. That's where you can find us. The Wrestling Rewind, thewrestlingrewind.com, Nerd to Know Media, nerdtoknowmedia.com. Welcome to the show. My name is Darragh O'Connor, and of course I'm joined by the one, the only, the reigning, defending, undisputed 1-0 Martin Herty on your birthday. Martin Hertings, how are you?
How's she gotten? I picked the week
Fierce
of Paddy's
rambunctious.
Day. Fierce rambunctious. I picked the week of Paddy's Day and my birthday to get COVID, so I'm in a mood.
Oh man. Well, look, we've all been there. It visits everybody now. So super immunity unlocked. So at least there's that, right?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the bullets bouncing off me.
Oh man, it's not fun though. It really isn't. So speedy recovery anyway. But it sucks that's on your birthday and Paddy's Day. So hopefully you had a few.
I did, yeah. I did. Once I kind of got the clear, I had friends came around then on Friday night, and I was actually surprised I didn't know what was happening. So it was a good job I'd gotten the negative that morning.
Yeah,
and we had a few drinks. I don't know if it was still the lingering effects of COVID or maybe we just went a wee bit too hard, but it was or maybe just the fact that I'm a year older. It was a particularly ferocious hangover on Saturday.
Oh man, yeah, I did miss a gig and everything as a result of it playing it. I'm like, sorry lads, can't show up. The old Rona decided to pay a visit, so nice. It sucks. But look, it is what it is. I'm glad you're feeling better now anyway. And look, sure, didn't you
100%.
have the worst WCW pay-per-view of all time to keep
and
the
that
company?
is saying something. Worst WCW, possibly worst pay-per-view.
I have heard there's one that's apparently worse, like Heroes of Wrestling, I think it's called. I've never actually seen it.
I've seen reviews of Heroes of Wrestling.
Same, I've never actually watched it.
Clips of it, yeah. I don't think I could even sit and watch but I sat and watched this, so. I mean,
we will get into this in graphic detail. Folks, if you're checking us out for the first time on YouTube and Twitch, please do subscribe, leave a like, that helps the channel out a lot. If you're listening to us on Phoenix 92.5 FM, you don't have to do anything, but we would appreciate if you went over and liked either one of the channels, because that would be great. Nerd to Know Media, thewrestlingrewind.com as well. So, before we get into this, man, we have to talk about a topic which we mentioned last week, and then I uploaded a video as well after the news was confirmed. Scott Hall unfortunately didn't pull through and did pass away. So obviously we do a review show based 20 years ago mainly, and Scott Hall shows up a lot, and it's just crazy to think, it really is a tough one for a lot of people in the rest of the community, and even outside it. A couple of YouTubers I watch randomly just have a clip of Scott Hall at the beginning of the show this week, and I'm like, wow, his impact, no pun intended, obviously, is amazing. But
I mean, even outside of wrestling, like, he would have been, kind of a source of inspiration maybe for people dealing with issues like addiction and that. Obviously he'd overcome is maybe too strong a word, but he certainly became better. Towards the end of his life.
It's wild though, man. Like, it's it's a week later. It's still just like, wow, we're in a world that Scott Hall isn't. You know.
Yeah, and given that our last show we recorded when we'd known the life support had been turned off, and people were kind of just saying it was a matter of time. So we didn't really know when we went live. We didn't really know what way it was going to be, and I think it was only even a few hours after we finished the show, maybe the next morning.
It was that next morning actually when we, because that's what I was like, right before I update this, and I updated it for the YouTube channel, but obviously it wasn't on Phoenix because we had already taped the show the day before that it was announced, you know. So it sucks, it really does. And even in our intro there as well, Scott Hall's all over it, and you're like, wow, you know, I suppose that's how you live forever. That's immortal, you know. And
and like we went over like in good detail last week, sort of his career and his life and his impact, not just in the ring, but the impact he had sort of behind the curtain in terms of contracts, but generally the like from the wrestling community, from like the people who actually knew him, the consensus seems to be that the guy had his demons, but he himself was a great guy, generous person, a great guy, and absolute mighty crack.
Oh man, well look, you know, if you guys haven't checked it out, please do check out the show from last week, where we kind of go into this stuff in detail. But we just wanted to say, you know, that's why it was a little bit different last week. We didn't know, you know, so obviously, you know, R.I.P. to Scott Hall, and
and if you're looking for something outside of his wrestling stuff to watch, and I think like Twitter all week has been telling you about, you know, classic matches of his you should go back and watch. But if you're looking for something outside of that, he is a big part of the resurrection of Jake the Snake.
Yes,
it's a documentary on Netflix. It's well worth watching.
Absolutely. All right, well look, let's get into this. WrestleMania is soon, man. I don't know because I don't care, but we are going to cover it when it happens.
Well, do you know? Did you hear the latest?
I did, yeah. This is another reason why I don't care.
We will be covering the roads to WrestleMania.
We will be covering the roads to Stardust. The return of Stardust.
But here's the thing. WWE have a huge opportunity here. Like, if they bring Cody in, and I mean, so here's the expectation. They'll bring him in, it'll be a big fanfare, he'll be in a run for a month, then he'll get bait by Roman, and then he'll be back down to the mid cards, and then before you know it, he'll be chasing the 24/7. If they don't do that, if they can bring him in a really big way, keep him hot, keep him elevated, keep him at the top of the card, I mean, that's a pretty good advertisement for WWE to AEW as to why their wrestlers should come over to them or why they shouldn't leave, you know. But I mean, do they have that in them to do it?
All I know is that they're looking forward to when Roman Reigns is holding those two belts at the end of WrestleMania.
Do you think it's going to be Reigns?
Yeah. There's nothing sure. Yeah, it has to be. Now,
is Lesnar then? Is he taking another year-long hiatus after that? Or?
Maybe. I don't see the. You know, even though they're not young fellas, it makes more sense to give Roman Reigns that massive push and cement him as the greatest of all time for WWE. Even though I like Roman Reigns. I always have.
He's had that belt for 2 years, so I mean, if he doesn't drop it to Lesnar, who?
Nobody.
Cody?
No. Cody be wearing that Stardust costume. When he walks in, they're probably like, Cody, look, we have it for you. Oh, God, I'd love it so much. It'd be amazing. Other than that, Raw's going to be even... And apparently he is signed to Raw. And that's going to make that show even more insufferable to watch. So... But look,
it'll be interesting to see how he is portrayed when he doesn't have, you know, the level of creative control he did in AEW.
Stardust. Like, that's what's going to happen. I'm telling you, man. He will get a bit of a pop for a while, and then he'll come out with Stardust, and I'll be like, brilliant. Or even look, all joking aside, Dashing Cody Rhodes was amazing.
I didn't see a lot of Dash and
Oh,
Cody Rhodes.
Dash and Cody Rhodes was incredible. He came out with the bags, these plastic bags, and everyone who he thought was ugly, he just put them over the heads. And then he had damaged Cody Rhodes where he got injured and he wore a mask.
Oh, I know he wore the
Phantom of the Opera mask kind of thing.
Phantom of the Opera. Although everyone called it the American Psycho mask, but I was like, no, that's an ice pack.
An ice pack, yeah. No, but as I said, like those gimmicks were cool, and I would personally resurrect either one of those because it's cool. But he has that stupid tattoo on his thing now, so he needs to get that removed.
What if WWE put a big polka dot over
They
it?
Should, yeah.
Just cover him in polka dots.
Or even just a big blue dot over it the whole time. Like they did with Christian. Because that's, it is the worst tattoo in the history of the planet.
Well, do you know what? It's a bold statement. It's definitely a commitment to your own brand.
Nobody likes and nobody wants. Oh, man. You know what? No, I'm enjoying this, though. I'm like, well, Cody, you had a position where you could literally be the king of your own castle and you traded away.
And your two TV shows and your terrible wife had a job. Actually, she's not. Brandy Rhodes is by all account a lovely person.
Yeah, this is in the ring. No, but obviously what we're saying, these comments are not aimed at the people. They're aimed at their professional output, which is horrendous. Like,
because apparently even Brandy did a lot of great work, in terms of that heels thing for women in wrestling. She'd helped set up.
She's still terrible in the ring. And
she's awful.
She's terrible. Like, again, look, outside the ring, obviously, this is not what we're talking about. I mean, like, as an actual output goes, Brandy Rhodes and Cody Rhodes are just not good. They're just not good.
Well, here's the thing is, I really like Cody as a wrestler. I will miss him.
I think he can be. I mean, when he's given, like, again, damaged Cody Rhodes, dashing Cody Rhodes was absolutely fantastic. Stardust as well, legitimately, I thought it was cool for what it was. It was like a weirder, darker version of Goldust. But in AEW, he just was like, okay, fair enough. He's doing his list thing and going through, and that was cool too. But with Brandy, she's Cody's wife, and that's it. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, what do you bring to the table? You know, WWE didn't sign her.
Oh yeah.
Nor would they.
And I'd say if Cody does come back to AEW at some point, which I imagine he will, I wouldn't say she's coming unless she's coming purely as a valet. As
a valet, like, that's fine. Valets do have their place. The weird thing about it is the reason why Cody left is such a pet. And look, it is petty in my personal opinion, where it's like there is reports, again, this is coming from the Observer, where it's like, look, he left because of all the info. And I did kind of see this coming, I'll be honest with you. The influx of, Danielson, Punk, Black,
But if you're Cody Rhodes and you're like, from a big wrestling family, surely you look at those guys coming in and you're just rubbing your hands thinking, this is going to be amazing. Look at the guys I get to work with.
But apparently, and again, this does come from the Observer, the frustration was he wanted to get paid something similar. And it's like, no, that was kind of it. And it's just like, what level of self-awareness do you just need to ignore to think that you're on that level of a Daniel Bryan or Punk? Punk is making ridiculous money.
Yeah, because he's worth ridiculous money.
Exactly, he's making crazy money. And he's also a massive draw. Listen, I would not watch Cody Rhodes for free. I wouldn't. And I don't. I actively skip him when he's on the television. Punk, I will actually sit down and watch and be like, okay, this is amazing. Even when he's coming out and doing his Walmart greeter Phil thing, I was still happy to see him. Cody Rhodes, I'm like, listen, unless you're wearing that Stardust costume, I don't care, So,
well, here's the thing: is I really liked him. I liked him as a wrestler. I liked his character. What I don't understand is that the money thing. It must have been just a pure ego move.
Apparently, it was. And look, again, this is not our opinion. This is what seems to have happened. It was an ego. He felt slighted by,
because in terms of his, he wasn't earning pennies. He was also an EVP. I assume that comes with some kind of different salary, or He had 2 bloody shows on TNT. He had a certain amount of creative control. The ear of the boss, being an EVP and all that. And He was. I mean, I thought, and again, I know people have disagreed with me, whether this was deliberate or not. I thought he was on the cusp of an all-time world-class heel turn. I thought he was on the absolute... I thought that wave, that crest of that wave had just peaked and it was just about to break. And then he left. So, the only thing I can think of is that it was pure ego. Apparently
that's what it was. And look, it's unfortunate again, yeah, he'll show up at WrestleMania. Apparently it's show up night 2 at WrestleMania. That's what I'm hearing from what Meltzer's saying, apparently.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. And obviously we're going to cover it. I think it's not next week. I think it's the week after, like the 1st and the 2nd. Or no, not the 1st. Yeah, no, the 2nd and the 3rd, I think that's what it is. I'm not 100% sure.
Is it? Is it that quick?
It's soon anyway. I think it's within... Because it was on SmackDown. Brock was like, I'll see it in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
It's either next week or the week after.
I got to tell you, man, this is... So if it wasn't for this show, after the Royal Rumble, if it wasn't for this show, I wouldn't have been watching Mania at all.
Fair.
And Cody is the only thing now that... again, if it wasn't for this show, Cody's the only thing that would actually made me tune in.
No, that's fair. Like as I said, there's nothing that I can recommend on WrestleMania that I want to see, except for Austin and Austin and Owens.
Yeah, I was mad to see that because they hyped that up as if it was going to be a match, and now it turns out it's one of those interview segments.
Yeah, where Austin stuns everybody and beer everywhere. Yeah,
it'll turn into a maybe a brawl and a stunner, but they had kind of hyped people up for
a match.
Yeah,
it's WWE over promising and under delivering. But look, we'll put a pin in that because we do have quite a show, folks. We really do. So look, if you haven't seen this again. What we say happened on the show, right? We're not BSing you. We're not lying. There's loads of videos on. I actually watched a good one there from What Culture, about 20 minutes ago, just to kind of see what the story was again, to see if it was as bad as I thought it was. And then Brian and Vinny had some outside stuff as well, which is pretty cool, which I'll mention we're talking about.
I listened to, after I watched the show, I listened to Tony Schiavone's, how do you pronounce that?
Shivani. Tony
Schiavone.
Yeah.
Tony Schiavone, right. Skiavone, as Jericho used to call him. I listened to his podcast because he's commentating on the show.
Oh, man, I need to watch that.
I listened to him go through it in detail, and he's like, I don't even like watching this. It brings me back to just the worst possible time in my life. Everything was miserable. Yeah. This company was dreadful. It was going down the toilet. Yeah. He's just livid.
I'm glad you did a bit of background reading as well, because there's so much going on here. Again, I watched this cold. I watched this absolutely cold. Just stuck it on. I knew, because we had talked about it. I was like, oh man, you're in for a treat because of the Judy Bagwell thing, and the that alone is enough to sell you on it. But I watched it cold. And there's some morally reprehensible things said by Mark Madden on the show.
Oh Lord!
And it's genuine. Look, even though it's a gimmick and it's a story or whatever, he says some horrendous things.
He doesn't even have that, because you can look back now at stuff Jerry Lawler used to say, and it's maybe a bit cringy now in this day and age, but it's still. It kind of has a playful element to it, or a cheeky element to it.
Mark Madden
this guy just sounds like a predator.
That's it. Oh my God, it comes off very predator. That's what I thought too. Yeah. There's a bit in this specifically where he's like, it just made my skin crawl. I'm like, bro, what are you saying?
He's like, so Jerry Lawler sees a beautiful female wrestler, and he's like, ayo, wink wink, nudge nudge, and then Mark Madden is like, I would physically assault that woman. It's just,
and Martin, you're not even like, he said stuff like that on the show, and you're like, what are you doing?
Oh,
it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And again, there were just times when obviously we built a bit of a tolerance to this because we're used to it, but I can't remember where it was, but he's like, and that tramp with someone, and you're like, what?
Oh,
you just,
God.
What are you, what?
And then, like, obviously we'll get to it, but when it came to the Stacey Keebler
match,
he just lost the run of himself altogether.
It was so predatory, it was unreal. And look, we're not stuck in the mud, whatever, but it's just like,
oh no, I'm no saint. Like, but particularly Stacey Keebler, like that was my girl when I was a teenager. You know,
but I mean,
Stacey.
like, and the match was mud rip off the clothes match, right? That's what it was called. And King has, you know, as you said later, there was an evening gown pool match that we covered, an Armageddon 1999, where King kind of lost his mind too, but it was still kind of playful in a sense, the way it came across. With Mark Madden, I don't know what it is. I think it's just that delivery. You're like, oh my God, like, this is so creepy.
Yeah.
I feel uncomfortable for everybody involved here.
Lawler's delivery is like high-pitched and excited, you know, like a puppy that's lost the run of itself.
Yeah.
Whereas Madden's delivery is like, you know, seething. Like he's sitting there eyeballing it, like,
dude, it's just so creepy, and I'm glad you said it, because that's what it felt like for me when I'm watching it. And it'd just be like these it wouldn't be all the time, but it would be constantly through the show where you're like, oh my God, Mark, what are you doing? Like, just dial it back a bit. And like, Tony Schiavone was just there. He even says it. He's like, what are you saying? And he just stops him and he's like, what are you saying? You know. So I don't blame him. Like, again, there was but it does kind of encapture the point I was going to make, and apparently it's true. There was no oversight. Nobody said to them not to say this. No one said to them not to do that. No one said, hey, you know, maybe tail it back a bit. Vince Russo was in the back pushing this kind of stuff and booking it. And you're like, okay, well, you're doing your job, and it's just very jarring. Like, it hits you right. And obviously we're in 2022. And things are a bit like, this would never fly now. You know, rightly or wrongly.
You would be out the door.
Like the comments that Mark Madden made. Now, obviously, he said in character. It's not actually his comments, right? But I mean, Jesus, like, he would be cancelled so fast it would make your head spin.
And it was even, like you say, as much the comments as the delivery, like Stacey Keebler would, I think, went for like a roll-up pin at one stage.
Oh, man. And he's like, it's the best pin I've ever seen.
Her ass was in the air.
Yeah.
And he was just like, leave the camera there. Oh, Jesus, man.
Like, what are you doing? Just please stop. Please stop. Like, it was just... Oh, it was... Like, again, look, if you think we're making this up, folks, we are not. Oh. We are not making this up. This was what was said on the show, and it was wild. Anyway, so look, speaking about this, obviously there was it started off actually okay, and again, I like Tree Count. I thought Tree Count was a cool gimmick. Tree Count and the Young Dragons in a gold record ladder match. Now, I don't know why there was a gold. Now, we don't watch the show in between, and even apparently, I actually went back and had a look and said, did this make any difference? Would this have helped? No, apparently it didn't help at all, because stuff just happened on this show. So again, for context, this happened in August 13th, 2000, Vancouver, British Columbia, so in Canada. The attendance was 6,000. Now, my first point on this, when I actually started watching this match, a lot of empty seats.
Just before you go on to the match, so the attendance was 6,000.
Yes.
Now, so this is one of the things I picked up from listening to the Tony Schiavone.
It was all paper, wasn't it?
So the attendance was 6,000. They actually sold about 4,500 tickets.
Yeah.
But they gave out more than, so they comped for free more than 3,000 tickets. Apparently, 56% of the people who got free tickets didn't even show up.
And you know what? You can see that because the first thing I noticed when I watched the show was, geez, on the hard camera side, a lot of empty seats. And the thing about it, on the hard camera, right, it's very, very... I don't know if you've been to wrestling shows, Martin, like that are shot for TV.
Never.
Right, so me and Gary used to go to a lot of wrestling shows. And we went to SmackDown and Raw, you know, because they used to do them together. So you go see Raw, you fly over to Manchester, Liverpool, whatever. Go to Raw, and then you'd watch SmackDown the next day. Now, SmackDown never actually sold the same as Raw. You know, you pick up the cheap seats, so up on the bleachers, for like 30, well, actually less, probably like 20 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And then for £20 would get you like basically hard camera or ringside on SmackDown. And how that would work is you'd buy the cheap seats, and then they would, basically, because no one would turn up, they'd just make the arena smaller and smaller and smaller, taper off a lot of it, tarp a lot of it off, and then move all the people to where the camera was going to be. So that's the way they used to do. I don't know, but that was the way it was on when we'd go over. So I'm very, very used to how they actually tape in empty arenas, right? And also in Impact, when they did their tapings as well, they had a similar problem. So what they do is they tarp off half the arena, which WCW did do, and then move everybody together. But obviously that takes some planning. Apparently this wasn't done here. They just had everybody sitting where they were supposed to be sitting, and there were massive gaps in this arena because of it. And it was very off-putting, because I'm like, can they not move these people together? And obviously, as you said, people just didn't turn up. So,
well, here's the thing that that I got the whole way through this. Nobody cares. And I don't mean... No. I mean, people who got free tickets didn't show up.
Sorry, there is one person who cares. Only one, though. Scott Steiner.
Scott, yeah.
He's the only one. He's the only one that shows up to work that day, and he's the only one that cares. And he tries. He really tries.
People who got free tickets didn't show up. The video packages in this were like they'd literally just been thrown together.
Terrible.
None of the wrestlers cared. Kevin Nash, and he doesn't care at the best of times, he had some unbelievable like moments where he was literally just shouting spots across the ring.
Yeah.
And even the pop of the night came from like a surprise Bret Hart appearance.
Who didn't care either.
My God, he walked out with his hands in his pockets and just like he wanted to be anywhere else in the goddamn world.
To put this into perspective, this was at the time when WWE was at its hottest ever.
Austin had just returned apparently at the same time as this.
No, Austin returned a Backlash a month later. This was the feud where it was actually SummerSlam 2000. So I remember because it was the first DVD I ever bought. Wrestling DVD. Yeah, got out of my communion money, so that tells you how old I am. And yeah, it was Triple H, Kurt Angle, and The Rock. So it was that feud, and then Austin would return a month later at Backlash. So they were red hot. You know, we're talking TLC match was the first TLC match.
Oh,
you know, so Shane McMahon and Steve Blackman in their awesome hardcore match, and then you flip to this, and you're like, no wonder nobody cared. They were just all out of ideas.
And it's even, you see it even in the set and stuff like that. It's the same set from the previous pay-per-view. It's just that scaffolding and
there's no sand.
Oh, there's no sand. Yeah. But it's just that rig of scaffolding, and it makes the thing look so
boxy,
bare and open, and it's just like. So normally, even the worst pay-per-view, because like you can't tell a pay-per-view's been terrible till it's over, but normally, even when a pay-per-view starts, you get a pop from the crowd, the fireworks going off, you get people cheering, you know. Just getting into the spirit of it.
What usually happens is, right, you'll have somebody hyping the crowd up, going, come on, right, we're getting ready to go to TV. And actually, they did it in the Thunderdome as well, which is very weird to have someone in your ear the entire time saying that. It's a very weird experience, I'm not going to lie to you.
And they were piping in noise the whole time.
Yeah, but, you know, to look animated, right? But what was weird... Sorry, what normally happen is you're there and they're like, right, we're 2 minutes to TV, get ready to go, and that's when turned it on. But live, usually it's in TNA, it was always JB who would say it, but it's whoever. They're like, right, we're getting ready to go. We want to hear everybody cheering, and then they would, right, and then 3, 2, 1, bang, and there you go, and there's a big cheer, right. It's basic wrestling TV 101, like how to do it, right. Yeah. It wasn't done here. Nobody cared. They're like, all right,
well,
yeah.
This thing started, and I swear to God, so the crowd was absolutely dead, even from the very start. And the fireworks that they used to launch the show were put to shame by the exploding ring at Revolution.
It was like little sparklers.
Yeah.
just going off. It was, it was dire.
We finally found
dire.
something that the exploding ring was more impressive than.
Oh man, this show sums up WCW, like bad WCW. This is what people think. And you know what? This is what people think WCW is, and this is what WWF wants you to believe WCW was.
Yeah,
and it's not.
It's unfair. Yeah,
it's very unfair. Like as I said, like we have watched a lot of WCW on this, and if you look at what happened here, the reason why this happened is because they became too much like WWE without a filter. Because a lot of the stuff you would actually see on WWE, we have seen on WWE. We've covered. And it's just like, there's just no one saying, hey, look, maybe don't do that.
Reel it in or
reel it in
this.
a bit, Like,
I'll tell you the other thing that ran through this, the whole way through this pay-per-view that really bugged me was, and this is the Vince Russo effect, all the smarky insider, like the commentators were constantly referring to what's a shoot and what's
he's gone off script.
He's gone off script. Tony was going on about this match it's just full of high spots, and I think when Bagwell and Canyon were battering each other around the crowd outside the ring, he said something like, "Oh well, this is a hot angle. This is the angle they're working." And it just why are you constantly the whole point of this is to be immersed in it. You don't need to be constantly pulling me out of it.
So what I think happened here was the show itself didn't matter. From what I gathered, from what the point of this was, the show didn't matter, which is your first problem. What was supposed to, and we were told none of the show actually mattered because it was all fake, right? Yeah. The backstage stuff, which was also fake, we were supposed to believe was real. And the whole point of the show was to tell us about the backstage stuff. Yeah. Now, I don't know how they thought that was a good idea or who that was for, but basically it was, and I really felt bad for the lads in the ladder match because apparently one of the lads broke his leg. Broke his foot the whole time, and he was working the entire match with his leg broken. But imagine going out there for 11 minutes and killing yourself in a ladder match, and the whole time they're like, this is all fake. Don't worry about it. None of this matters.
Commentators are talking about how you're working and how you're...
Yeah, it's like, why did you... Okay, if you're going to do that, why did you put them in a ladder match? That is a dangerous match. It's beyond comprehension. You know what? And another thing that really bugged me, Lance Storm and Mike Awesome. Lance Storm is incredible. Mike Awesome's one of the
Mike Awesome's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. He's one of the best wrestlers who just didn't get a fair shake. And they ruined that match.
Ruined it.
It was like I was invested in it because I'm like, I really like Mike Awesome and I really like Lance Storm. And I'm like, this is cool. Lance Storm looked like a champion. I loved his angle. That was great.
He actually got a crowd reaction.
And I loved the 3 belts. I was like, oh man, this is cool. And the only thing that goes wrong is the match makes no sense. And you're like, what is actually going on here? Go on.
The other thing I want to know about it. So, New Blood Rising.
Yeah. Is
the New Blood angle not over at this stage?
It is, yeah.
What the hell is this about?
I don't know. This replaced Hog Wild and Road Wild. So this is when it normally be. And obviously, because Bischoff isn't there, they're not going to do they're not going to give him, there's no reason to indulge.
To do it, yeah. That's one thing Tony says in his podcast. He said, this was dreadful. I guess the only silver lining is at least we weren't outside surrounded by motorbikes and racists.
Shivani has the best calls here, he does. But I mean, that's why this was brought in, because they had that slot and they weren't going to go back to Sturgis. So it was like, all right, fair enough. But man, it's very hard to find a good in this. Like, the Sting versus the Demon, it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. The entrance was longer. And even, right, when okay, we're just going to go through it, because, if we don't, we won't.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go through it. So 3 Count opened with Young Dragons, and I really like 3 Count. Obviously, you look at the names, Shannon Moore, Shane Helms, obviously you know who they are.
Yeah.
They're literally responsible for training with the Hardy Boys and then going off and doing their own thing as well, right?
And really great at that gimmick. Like, they knew that gimmick was
great.
to be as terrible and as obnoxious as possible. And do you know what? They're so good at it.
Yeah.
That when because I haven't seen a lot of 3 count, they're so good at it that when I was watching it, I was going, is this a gimmick or is this just terrible?
But here's the thing. That would get over today.
Oh, massively.
That would get over. And like, I would actually be like, that's a great gimmick for young fellas who are, you know, what, like not 25, let's say. And then Tank Abbott, like, just being the weird manager, I'm like, that could actually work really well.
It reminds me a wee bit of the Jericho Appreciation Society.
It's what it felt like. Yeah, it really did. And it's like, it's cool, you know. And then obviously to go into the ring and just having a great match. The Young Dragons, I wasn't familiar with them beforehand, but I was really impressed with them. And it was a shame because when the match was over, well, okay, one, the contract thing made no sense.
No, because there was two things hanging on the roof.
And it's like, okay, so what did they... So for me, when I saw it, I'm like, all right, so they get a record deal. Why is a golden record there? And what? So do the Young Dragons want to be singers too? Like,
or do they want someone else's golden record?
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, what I would have done is a briefcase with a record contract or a WCW contract. It's like, that makes more sense. Because then that way, but then again, you have to get over the gimmick and it has to look silly and unexpected. And it's just like, so the whole time I'm like, right, so if the Young Dragons grab both, are they going to make an album? It's so stupid.
Here's the other thing, and perhaps you can explain this to me.
I can't. I can't explain any of this, but I'll try.
Even before I ask.
I'll try, go on.
No, because this is something that has always confused me, because WWE has actually done it recently, and I've seen it done on the indies, and what is the rule of a ladder match? So in this match, it's actually the Young Dragons who climb up and get the golden record.
Yeah.
And then Tank Abbott comes in and pushes the ladder, and they fall off the ladder, and he grabs the record.
Yeah.
So is it you have to get the belt and then get on the ground? Because obviously, so in what was it in Money in the Bank, WWE did the thing where whoever got the briefcase and then dropped it, and then Otis was on the ground and he caught it.
Yeah.
So what is the rule of a ladder match?
Well, usually what happens with the belts, and WWE around this time would do it too, whenever they pulled belts down, that's the winner.
Yeah.
But at some point, and also angle permitting, it's whoever catches it when they're on the floor. So just say you and I are fighting for the briefcase or whatever, and I get the briefcase, but then you knock me off and you grab it and then drop to the ground. You win, right? But it's usually, I think with belts, it's when you pull them down, that's it, because you're actually holding it. But when you drop to the ground with the briefcase, you get it. But then again, we've seen it as well, where when they get the briefcase, they get the briefcase. I think it's angle permitting. Whoever's, if for example, I think what the rule of thumb is, if it's two people on a ladder, and they knock the person off and they get it and they hold it and secure it. I think it's securing actually. When they secure it, it's theirs. So
okay, it's secure. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
I think that's what it's supposed to be, and that's kind of where the leeway comes from. So if it's like a secure grasp where you clearly have it, it's yours. But yeah, I think that's where it comes from, which makes even less sense here because the Young Dragon clearly has it. Tank Abbott just hooves your man and takes it, and it's like, all right, I guess you're not following the rules. I guess you're just doing whatever you want to do.
Well, that's the other thing about following the rules. So apparently another thing I found in the background reading was that every match on this card, every match was no DQ.
What?
Now, they didn't tell anybody
that.
In the arena that. They didn't tell anybody on the show that. But apparently every match is no DQ. But that still doesn't make sense. So, because why then did they have a load of spots where people were like trying to hide stuff from the ref, or someone would sneak in behind the ref's back? It just wall-to-wall nonsense.
It would make sense though why... Actually, no. I can't even finish that sentence. None of this made any sense, guys. None of this made sense. So look, so that was the end of the ladder match, and it was 11 minutes of actually great action, but for nothing.
Yeah.
Then there was a weird thing that happened. Now, look, we're big fans of Ernest Miller here, you know.
Yeah.
You particular for some reason. Actually, no, it's for a good reason. It's for a good reason.
Yeah. It's because he came out to the actually at Road Wild.
The year
he came
before.
out, surrounded by all the racists, and he was just having none of it.
Yeah.
He wore these gloves with like the Confederate flag on the back of them.
So Ernest Miller came out and he was against the Great Muta. And look, I love the Great Muta. Obviously, everybody should because he's cool, right? But they treated him like absolute garbage.
Oh my God.
It was just nothing.
They brought the Great Muta in from Japan and put him on the second match of the show.
And not only that, they put him in a stable with Vampiro.
Well, yeah, we get to that as well.
And the Kiss Demon. That's what they did with the Great Muta.
And the worst thing is, it's not as if Sting had like a huge important angle. Like, why couldn't you just have like a really class exhibition match with
Muta?
Two world class, world famous wrestlers.
Like, again, look, we're not gonna rebook this because that's very cliche. But I mean, Sting versus the Great Muta, have that as your second last thing or your opener.
Yep.
The thing writes itself.
Doesn't need a stipulation.
No.
Doesn't need a story. Doesn't need an angle.
But so Ernest Miller, who's hanging out the back with his feet with these random women. And then he comes out, has a match, doesn't look like he's even dressed for a match, has one, beats the Great Muta, and then we go straight to Buff Bagwell running around backstage going, where's my mom, where's my mom? And you're like, what? And then it turns out that Chris Kanyon has her on a...
Tied to a forklift.
Chris Kanyon come out, and then they have a match. Where they did say she was going to be on a pole. That's how they advertised it. And obviously, she wasn't strapped to a pole. She was just on a forklift. So
how would you even?
I don't even know.
How?
I don't even know. It was, but
logistically, how would that work?
But what was weird is, so you didn't have to grab, you didn't have to pull her down or anything like that. You just had to take her down, and then, but I think it was a pin, wasn't it? So you did a pin first, and then you took her down, and that was it. But the whole time, Chris. Who was it?
Really, it was more like a shark cage match than an on a pole match.
Yes, yeah. It was that's exactly. Who was it kept saying? So it wasn't Chris. Oh yeah, Chris. Sorry. So Chris Kanyon. It's such a mess. I'm trying to remember. So Chris Kanyon's gimmick was he tried to be like DDP.
Yeah, he was positively Kanyon at this stage.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was his gimmick, and it was so off-putting as well because DDP had a valet, right? I think it actually was his wife in real life. I'm not too sure. And Mark Madden was like, oh, Judy Badwell could be, I can't remember DDP's wife's name, but who wouldn't want to be like DDP's wife? And you're like, this is such a weird way to call this match. What are you doing? And the whole time I was just really distracted by it. I'm like, do you want to get with DDP? Is that what's going on here? Anyway, and then
I'll tell you what though, for all the terrible things
it's just, man, it was just so bizarre. I'm like, okay, I understand you're calling a match where a woman is on a forklift and you have to say something to get it over, but I'm like, that's a weird way to go about it. Like, but then again, what do you say, Well,
the thing is, for all the terrible things said about women in this show, I think this match in particular was just so ridiculous that I actually found it hilarious when Kanyon came out and he said, this is supposed to be a Judy Bagwell on a pole match, but I couldn't find a pole big enough that would support that big fat battle axe. So I put her on a forklift. Are you all right up there? Yeah, battle axe.
Canyon's the best. Oh man, Canyon's the best. He's so funny. Look, Bagwell and Kanyon actually had a great match. That's the worst part.
That's the worst
part.
The
match was really good.
It was decent. Really good might be pushing it a bit.
No, but I mean,
decent match.
I mean, all the stuff around the nonsense was great. So the outside stuff was great. The in-ring stuff was great. It was when
genuine at the very start when they went out of the ring and around the crowd. Genuine intensity, like real. Felt like a real fight at stages.
It was when they had to incorporate the ridiculousness of what they were doing, that's when it fell apart. So here, tell me this: when did David Arquette come out? Was it during this match?
Yeah, so David Arquette rocked out.
Yeah.
I mean, the match was only about 6.5 minutes long. Mother of God! So David Arquette came out and
former world champion. Remember, they made to make a point of that.
He came out dressed as a builder. Oh, maybe the forklift. Maybe that was the reason.
But then he came out to DDP's music as well, because DDP's music played pretty much 3 times for some reason.
Yeah, and then he sort of hung around out the side and then cracked Bagwell with a helmet. No reason.
No reason. He just and even a commentator, they're like, well, he's filming a movie next door, and he just pops in, and you're like, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe that. I can't believe those words that came out of your mouth.
Is that what happens in this sports competition? If you're a celebrity,
you just show up.
You can pop in and interfere in matches.
That's how they said it. They're like, yeah, he's filming a movie next door, so he's just here now. And you're like, okay.
So he came in to assist Canyon. Didn't work out.
No.
Canyon lost. Yeah. Like you say, actual in-ring stuff, a pretty decent match. And then obviously just, again, for no reason, maybe just to pop the crowd, Canyon drops a cutter on Arquette. And
I've never heard a man so sad that someone couldn't be like a facsimile of another man's wife. Mark Man screaming, Judy will never be like DDP's wife. And you're like, what are you saying? What are you doing? Just stop. Yeah, it's just, oh my God. Such a weird way to call that match. But anyway.
Yeah, and it was pure WCW. Well, not even pure WCW. It was pure Russo WCW. It was 2 decent in-ring guys trying to make the best of just the absolute nonsense they had been saddled with.
The next one, actually, though, was... so the next match, and then later on, kind of a follow-up to it, was I just checked out completely. I actually hit the skip button on this one, the fair, because it was just, again, I didn't miss anything. Chronic, apparently all their movesets are drug references, which I didn't get, but apparently they all are, which is weird because none of those guys look like they would be necessarily, pot smokers. They look like big actual athletes.
Yeah, they're not like super chill or anything.
No, they're really intense.
They're really intense and aggressive.
And they're just like, 420 drop. You're like, no,
it's like, lads, are you sure it's Chronic you're doing? Are you sure you shouldn't be? You sure you shouldn't be called Meth?
Well, no, but like, the move should be like about killers and stabs and stuff like that, because they look like they're. But I don't know, man. Like, it's just so weird. It just didn't fit, Sean Stasiak came out with Chuck Palumbo, which terrible pairing. I did like Sean O'Hare though and Mark Jinrak. That was a cool. Like, it's funny because a lot of these guys would actually show up in WWE later on, doing better things and would be part of the Ruthless Aggression era. But this match was not good. Not good.
No,
it was 12 minutes
and nothing to watch.
Yeah,
it was a goddamn mess. See these multi-man matches, they have to be really well worked. So we saw Revolution last week. We talked about the six-man tag. No, not the 3 tag team match with Red Dragon Bucks and Jurassic Express.
Yes.
And that stuff has to be worked out and executed perfectly for it not to be an absolute mess.
Yeah.
This was a mess.
But it has to have a point, and this was a world title match as well, which made it even worse. Like, look, the Chronic were the champions, and to be fair, they would remain the champions pretty much up until WWE, and then would be battered by The Undertaker and Kane in like 2 minutes. But this whole thing, man, it's...
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the whole issue with the Filthy Animals and Disco Inferno as the special guest ref.
Oh, which would come back.
He wasn't even necessarily picking one team that he was favouring with his like slow counts and stuff. He just seemed to be being a jackass to everyone.
Oh man. And the worst, I don't even know why they did this, but they would come back later on in the night and actually get involved in important matches.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it annoyed me more than it should have, just because Disco Inferno is such a prick these days. But then it ended with one of the guys from the Filthy Animals ran in and just no, not the Filthy Animals. I can't remember the name of the team, but one of the guys ran in and just put on a ref shirt and did the count, and you're like, all right, at least it's over.
Yeah, the next match was Billy Kidman and Shane Douglas. Here's the thing, man, right? So I was watching this, and it's funny you brought up Revolution, right? Because I'm like, wow, this is a really kind of cool parallel where we talked about a great strap match and then one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And
yeah, man,
it's annoying. We've talked about how much we like Billy Kidman. Billy Kidman was great. I really like Shane Douglas.
Yeah, Shane Douglas could work.
Genuinely do not know why they put someone who's known for high flying in a strap match.
You have my goddamn notes. That's literally just what I have written down.
Literally what's on your notes.
Literally have down here, Billy Kidman, a high flyer. Why put him in a match where he can't fly?
No, and where they literally, and there's some really disturbing spots in this as well. Again, like, so Billy Kidman's supposed to be, so this is like a revenge porn angle, I think, where Billy Kidman has shared intimate images of Tori Wilson, which again is a horrendous, disgusting angle.
There's a whole thing, like, again, we don't watch the Nitro, so I don't know what the story is. There's a whole thing through this about a sex tape, and a sex tape being released, and it's just, I mean, back in the noughties watching that, you were probably like, oh, but I mean, this week, I think it was literally just last week that Stormont, the assembly in the north, made that like a crime. It's
a crime in Ireland as well. It's been a crime for a while. And you're like, wrestling, I was like, you'll do 20, you'll do like what? I think it's either like 10 or 15 years. I'm like, jail. No wrestling match, jail. It's like, okay. Oh man, it's wild. It's, again, we're looking at this from the mindset of 2022, which makes it more funny in certain ways, where you're like, I can't believe this was like real, but also just like, what were you thinking? It just doesn't age well. It just genuinely does not age well.
No.
But the worst part of this wasn't even that. That was bad by itself. Tori Wilson gets battered by Billy Kidman, which is very uncomfortable to watch.
Well, he kind of spanks her with the strap.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's still not a good thing to see.
No,
like,
it's not good, but it's...
he's supposed to be a heel, but he gets cheered, and then he does that and gets cheered more, and you're like, I don't know what's going on.
I tell you what happened at the end as well. So after the match, again, like you said earlier, this couldn't have happened on a worse week, because we just seen one of the best dog collar / strap matches ever last week, and now we're watching this. But this ended with a really convincing looking, kind of gruesome hanging angle. It's up there. It's up there with Undertaker Bossman for uncomfortableness. And it was so realistic looking and so uncomfortable that deserved a great angle. It deserved better than this.
Look, again, Shane Douglas, Kidman, two of the low-key greats, I think, where they've done so much and they were so innovative. They just were given garbage and went and did what they could do, you know. But you're right. In the space of a week, you know, if you're listening to this show, you've heard, you know, why a great dog collar strap match works and why they don't. And everything in this match is like an 8-minute, nearly 9-minute blow by blow of things not to do, because it doesn't work, you know. And everything is wrong about it. So even like we said, the match wasn't great. The sort of subtext around the story, the angle wasn't great. Yeah. But even the commentary got the tone entirely wrong in this. So Kidman sold that hanging like he was being hung
disturbingly well. Like,
and they were cracking jokes.
He was panicking,
and they were cracking jokes the whole time.
Yeah, he's hanging there. His feet are dangling off the ground. He legit looks like he's been choked. And Madden comes out with, "Oh, well, at least Kidman can say he's well hung." You know, like, you know, and it's just whether that's funny or not. Like, that should have been a point where that's where you use the super serious, oh my God, folks, we're sorry voice.
Yeah.
You know.
So look, folks, if you are listening to us here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, we are going to have to take our break here. Again, if you're checking us out here, what are you doing? Go over to Nerd to Know Media, thewrestlingrewind.com, where you can get the full show. And of course, we'd love to have you guys live as well. If you're listening to us on the stream, we're going to keep going, because obviously we're not going to take a break. But yeah, if you are checking us out on Phoenix 92.5 FM, please do go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, like the channel. That really helps us as well. And if you want to get in contact with us, all the details are there, where you can ask us to review something as well. But we are going to get back, finish this, go and check out the podcast when it's available. You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Let's keep going there. So as you said, you know, that's where you would have the super serious voice, or even Giovanni shouting, going, "Oh my God, folks! You know, this has really what would he say? He wouldn't do the JR thing.
Too far.
This has gone too far. Yeah, it's gone too far. He, he's not messed around anymore. This has gone too. Can we get somebody out here to stop this?
Crossing the line.
Yeah, it was like no. It was you know who should have been there. I'm going to say this now. You know who would have made this better?
Who?
Mike Tenay.
Well, yeah,
Mike Tenay.
But
because Mike
you could
Tenay,
say that about any.
Well, yeah, Mike Tenay makes everything better. But I mean, like, if he had been there, because like Schiavone is a great commentator. He's one of the best of all time. I love Tony Schiavone, but yeah. I mean, like, he's not the straight guy, like Mike Tenay was. Mike Tenay would have been there the whole time. Take Mark Madden out and go, no, right, have him there. And that would have been a cool, for those moments where it's like, okay, look, we're joking around, but this is serious. And if you actually look at, and we will see it on the TNA shows, when stuff like this would happen, Mike Tenay was brilliant at that. Because he was there with Don West, who would make more jokes than anyone in wrestling, period. But Tenay would always bring that level there, no matter how. Look, and TNA was more ridiculous than WCW at points, but there would still be that point where it's like, look, no, we're serious things here, and this is a moment where it would have benefited from it. The jokes don't land if the whole thing is a joke. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If everything is 5 stars, nothing is. If everything's a joke, nothing is. And exactly, it's just tonally, it's just weird to see him. Like, for example, it's like someone getting powerbombed through 15. We saw it. Someone getting powerbombed through like 4 tables, and then they make a joke, and it's like, yeah, well, this doesn't matter, and that's what kind of got it here with this as well. The subtext of the show was, look, yeah, okay, great, they're doing this, but it's all fake. Don't you know it's fake? Yeah, it's all fake. And then it's all the stuff backstage you need to care about. Exactly. No matter that lad getting hung out there, it's not that big of a deal. And you're like, wait, what? It's such a weird thing. Where it's like the obverse of WWE, where it's just like nothing else matters but WWE, and whatever we say happens in the ring is real, compared to everything that happens in the ring isn't real, everything backstage is real. It's a weird role reversal that they've done. Major Guns defeated Miss Hancock in a mud rip-off clothes match. Yep. Mud rip-off of the clothes match, excuse me. Yeah. This was so I don't think anyone expected a great match out of this, but I mean, straight into it, like, the commentary was already joking that this is a terrible match. You're going to see a great technical bout, blah blah blah, and then Mark Madden went full into his, hey, it's like Steamboat Flair, except I want to see them naked. Yeah, that's a joke. That's a line he said, all right. He then repeated this 5 or 6. Like, he started coming out with all these classic matches. It's like Savage, Savage Hogan, except I want to see them naked. It's like Sammartino and whoever, except I want to see them naked. Oh my God. It was disturbing. It really was. And again, you know, when the pinfall mercifully happened, he doubled down.
Yeah.
Look, we're not going to throw the blame at him, obviously, but again, nobody was telling him what to say, so it nearly makes it worse. It wasn't like when there's a bad call in WWE and you're like, yeah, well, Vince was shouting at him. It was just kind of like, there was no oversight, you know, and I will have to say, look, from a match perspective, it was 6 minutes. I don't know why it started in the ring. I was very confused by what the rules were. Like, they didn't really kind of go over them. So basically, the match started in the ring, and you're both wearing these camo outfits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so it's like an evening gown match where they pull all the clothes off, and then that's it. But no, they had to pull all the clothes off in the mud bath that was up at the entranceway, and then also pin them.
Yeah. It was never made clear.
It was never made clear. It's like, so
can you pin them without the mud? Can you pin them in the mud if you don't pull the clothes off? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
it was just made no sense.
Overanalyzing it.
Well, no, I'm like, that's what we do, right? But I'm like, so eventually it did end when the clothes were pulled off and the pinfall happened. But it's the only one of those matches that I've ever seen where there was a pinfall, because usually it's just they roll around for a while and pull off the clothes, and then that's it.
Yeah, and then you cover yourself, and you run off.
It's just like,
no,
was there no agent going, listen, ladies, you don't have to do all this. You know, this is necessary, but of course there wasn't. There was nobody planning any of these matches. These just kind of happened.
So the match itself, if we can even call it that, dreadful, even by sort of the standard of Divas matches at the time. The movements are awkward and stilted. It's actually, do you know what it was? It was actually a dangerous match because neither of them could work. And in fact, I think Tori Wilson, she actually did end up getting injured. So they go for she takes
It wasn't Tori Wilson. It was Talene Book.
Oh,
and
Major Guns. Sorry. Yeah.
Major Guns was Talene Book, and Miss Hancock was obviously Stacey Keibler.
So Major Guns runs at Keibler, or Miss Hancock at the time, but Keibler, and it looks like she's doing a kind of a back body drop into the mud, but she kind of only slides over and almost goes face first down into it. And apparently, somewhere in that whole malaise, Major Guns got injured.
Jeez,
but this was a dangerous match between two people who could not work.
Well, neither one of them could work, and then also, as I said, there doesn't look like there was any agent explaining the match, and then at the same time you had the very real, elements of mud. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a lot of mud.
I have had many a mud fight. Of course, I'm a country boy.
But I mean, like, I remember we were shooting Game of Thrones, and we were doing one of the battle scenes, and you have 400 people walking up the first time. That's fine. The second time, it's sliding everywhere. The third time, you can't walk. So I mean, like, mud is not easy. Mud is not an easy thing to work in or around. And
one of the so I used to do a lot of like Tough Mudder and Hell and Back and Spartan Run and do those obstacles.
Oh yeah, so you would know all about that, man.
So one of them that they have down in, I think it's Stradbally in Laois for Hell and Back. One of them is it's just a hill, but it's just a really crappy muddy hill, and that's the obstacle. Just getting up that is an obstacle on its own.
Yeah, I believe it. Like, and again, there should have been some kind of, we can talk about that all day, but it's an indictment really of WCW where they're like, you let two women go out there who shouldn't have been out there.
No, and look, put them out in a tag match with someone who knows what they're doing.
Even an evening gown. If you want to do the clothes thing, evening gown match. The wedding dress match that they had a couple of weeks ago was grand. It's like, because it's not dangerous. That's it. There you go.
But
fine.
this this had layers to this. So the match was awful. The whole commentary thing was reprehensible. Obviously, the pulling clothes off thing isn't great in the light of 2022.
It's never a good match. It's never.
But even after that, this bloody escalated, because then they went into a goddamn miscarriage angle.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Yeah, they did, didn't they?
So the match ended when Stacy Keibler grabs her stomach and keels over and starts screaming, and Major Guns starts panicking. It's like, oh my God, help her. And an ambulance comes out, and this is a bloody miscarriage angle now, which is, I mean, even by 90s, noughties standards, this is just unbelievably tasteless.
Yeah.
And then it gets even worse because effing David Flair shows up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, on your WCW bingo card, hopefully you had David Flair, because you knew he was going to show up. You didn't know when, but he shows up.
He's there.
But
yeah, this was just layers of terrible.
So in all transparency, when I was watching this, I flicked through some of the worst parts of it, just because I was like, I can't watch this anymore. And I actually skipped through a match, because when you hit the WWE Network and it skips 30 seconds, right? So after that absolute train wreck that you just described, I was like, all right, there's probably going to be a video package or something. Skip. And then I'm like, all right, Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, cool. And I'm like, wait, hold on. No, something's wrong here. And I went back and I just saw Sting. Like, you know when you're scrolling through and you see a face, I'm like, wait, Sting wasn't on this. So I scrolled back, and sure enough, there was a match. And it wasn't a match. It was 52 seconds.
52 seconds, yeah.
Of the Sting and the Demon match. And I'm like, what happened here?
So one of the interesting things is that Sting comes down from the rafters on repels down on a wire.
Yeah.
And when he gets down, he's attacked. And for this second match in a row, if you take out the Major Guns Miss Hancock match, for the second match of the night, separated by one match, they've done another hanging angle where they try to use the wire he comes down on to wrap it around his neck and lynch Sting.
But I mean, fair enough. It was an ODQ match, which we would later find out would be the case. So that's okay. But why did the Demon just wasn't over? What was this?
I think this was them fulfilling a contractual obligation to have the Demon on a certain number of pay-per-views.
But I think, you know, again, it goes back to my firm belief that none of these matches were planned out.
Oh, yeah.
There was no agent booking these matches, because the match just ends, and I swear, folks, watch it. It just ends, and the commentator team are like, "Oh, it's over. Scorpion Death Drop. That's it." And you're like, "Wait."
Do you think Sting? Because Sting, he knows when something's on the pot, and he'll put an end to it. So obviously, he had that match with Jeff Hardy, TNA, where this isn't going anywhere. Do you think Sting showed up, saw the shambles that this was?
Yeah, and he was probably like,
went up to the Demon and said, "I'm going to come to the ring. I'm going to do my death drop, and I'm going to leave."
I think so. I think they called it in the ring. I thought, or as you said, just before they went out, they're like, "Here, we're getting out of this. We'll go get some food or whatever." Because, like, man, I can't explain it. Like, again, I missed it because I was just flicking through, and it's so short that when you skip on the WWE Network, you miss it completely. So complete train wreck.
And then somehow, even once it's over, all these guys run in who have no connection to Sting or the Demon.
No.
There's no connection there.
No.
And that somehow becomes yet another Chronic tag team match
later on
this show, not on Nitro, on this goddamn show.
Yeah, it would set up the Dark Carnival and Chronic after a match that makes even less sense than anything we've talked about. So,
they would all run in, and it would set up a match that features neither the Demon nor Sting.
No, just groups that they're loosely associated with, but don't actually hang out with. But anyway, so the next match, to be fair, rebooking this should have been the main event, or should have been a co-main event, or should have been awesome, because it kind of was until it wasn't. So Lance Storm was built, the best I've ever seen him, actually. He was built as a champion. And again, Lance Storm as a champion is a weird statement, which is unfair. It really is. Lance Storm's great. Mike Awesome, again, actually looking like proper killer. But it was for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship or the WCW Canadian Championship, which he obviously renamed, which I think that's a cool gimmick that someone should use. You know, for the US belt, they should be like
slap a sticker over it.
You know, like if actually they did it in WWE game and Sheamus won it. He called it the European title or whatever. And I think more wrestlers should do that as like a easy cheap heel. You know, you're like, no, this is the. You know, the US or Intercontinental belt should be, you know, whoever wins it they should strap a thing on it. I think it would be cool.
I'd like to see someone win the NXT UK title and slap like a tricolour over it. Or
that
something.
Would be cool. Well, that would be awesome. You know, or this is the EU belt and they're like really fond of Europe.
EU
you know,
the
they're like
belt.
no. I mean, like you can do stuff like that. It'd be fun, you know. But yeah. So this is what they did, and I think it is a cool angle, but. It was undercut by complete nonsense. So basically there was some lad there reading out the rule book of Canadian rules. Now, what they normally do is when you have these kind of matches, they explain them. WWE would actually do this a year or two later with Mark. Do you remember William Regal's feud with Jericho, Marcus Queensberry rules? So they would actually do this angle a year later in WWE, but actually done correctly. It was on like a rebellion show or insurrection.
Not only done correctly, done... sort of reading the room.
Yeah.
Because Lance Storm was the goddamn crowd favourite here.
Yeah.
He was over as all hell. And they did everything in this match to make him the heel. And it just made no sense. Like, by all means, do this match. Do a Canadian rules match, you know, where Lance is a heel and, you know, other Canadians are helping him win. But don't do it in bloody Canada where he's over.
No. Here's what would have made more sense. Doing a straight barn burner match here, right? Where Mike Awesome cheats, right?
100%.
And then what happens is Lance Storm they kind of do a double turn, right? And then the next night on Nitro, they do Canadian rules, where it's like, oh, I get an automatic rematch, but we're going to do it under Canadian rules. And then you can even have your turn again where you have the double swerve. I mean, if you're going to do nonsense like this, at least think it out. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it and having no plan.
But the worst part is, Bret Hart had already spent a year and a half showing them exactly how to do the face in Canada, heel in the US thing.
Yeah.
He'd already showed them how to do it.
Yeah.
It's just...
but the worst thing as well, like, so, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't see this, so we would later find out that Canadian rules is no disqualification, but all matches where it's good no disqualification anyway. You had to score a 5 count, and then the referee, you'd have to answer a 10 count after that. And then, but the match would end if you went through a table. And there was champion advances. So,
it was just
ridiculous. So Mike Awesome won the match like 4 times?
Easily four times,
4 or 5 times.
So he won on a DQ.
Oh, sorry, and there's no submission either. You can't win.
And then he won on a submission. He won on a pinfall. So he won, I think, 4 times. Yeah,
and then he put him through the table, but because they went through the table at the same time,
they had to answer the 10 count.
Yeah, and Lance Storm won because he answered.
Yeah.
It. So basically, if you went through the table, there would be the 10 count, and the first person to get up won. Right. So
see, unless it's done really well, a 10 count is a momentum killer in a match.
A 10 count in a last man standing match is a cool idea, but you have to kill each other.
It has to be done really well.
Yeah, you have to kill each other. You know?
I hate it when you're like 3 minutes into a last man standing match and someone does a suplex and the referee starts going, "What?" Is it? Come on, nobody's
he's fine. Get a but no, this was just it was a shame because like the parts were all there. And it was just so stupid. It was
a straight match between these two would have been fantastic.
Even a Canadian rules match, right? Now, again, or you know what? Actually, it would have been good, but they wouldn't have done it. Mike Awesome saying, right, we're not doing a Canadian rule match. We're doing an Extreme Rules match, or we're doing a Pittsburgh kind of match, or whatever, or Philadelphia style match.
That would make sense because in Canada, he's automatically the heel.
Yeah.
So he could have come out and said, "We're not doing a Canadian rules. Your rules are stupid. We're going to do a wherever I'm from rules match."
Or because again, there was the big ECW chance as well every time they went for weapons. So I mean, like, if they wanted to get heel heat there, but again, I don't even know who was heel and who was face.
No,
the crowd was chanting for Lance Storm. So I mean, if they really wanted to get fire on this and get Lance Storm winning, have Mike Awesome going, "We're not doing Canadian rules, we're doing Philadelphia rules because we're American." And then it would have obviously got the ECW thing done. Got Lance over as the face for being in Canada and representing Canada. And then the next night you can rotate that, and then he's like, "Well, no, you beat me last night, but because we won, we're going to do Canadian rules." It's like, just talk about it, like, logically, and you'll see how it makes sense. But they didn't. What they did here, everyone was just left deflated and confused and angry. I wasn't angry, but I was like, you've just killed both these guys for no reason.
And disappointed because, man, this pay-per-view needed a good match. And Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, if you just let them at it, could have had a great match. And then the confusion was compounded then. So the match ends, and then Bret Hart comes out.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, which side is he on? Bret's Canadian, but he's always been like, a fighting champion, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
So he comes out and he hugs the heels.
Oh.
So this is a heel turn by a returning Bret, but in front of a crowd that's cheering them to the high heaven. Like, I mean, we could do a whole video on how WCW just screwed up Bret Hart, but this was inexplicable.
It was just crazy. Crazy. And then the Great Muta came out again, and not only did they embarrass them first time around, but they embarrassed them. I have to say, Vampiro looked deadly on this, actually. He looked really cool.
Yeah, I thought Muta was... I didn't think he looked as bad in this match.
No, but I mean, like, what was the point?
Oh, zero.
Like, what was the point? Again, like, yeah, okay, it was a random title shot.
Who wanted to see Chronic twice?
Now, keep in mind, right, there was a four corners match. And obviously, the participants in that four corner match had earned their opportunity to be in that match, and they obviously had to do a four corner, which is never a good way. I don't like fatal four ways anyway, right? But so if I'm in universe on one of those teams, I'm like, geez, we got kind of cheated out. Muta just shows up and gets this for hitting your man. Like, it's ridiculous, and it wasn't like it was just a random match. It was for the belts. This was the second tag championship match of the night.
The other thing was that Chronic suggested it. Like, why? You're the champions. You won your match. You have your belt. You're in Vancouver. Off you go and head off and get some poutine and a pint. Like,
it just makes no sense. But no. So Vampiro and Muta actually won. So they're the new champions.
So Muta must be sticking around, is he? At least
I don't know.
Did Chronic win them back, like on Nitro or something?
Well, apparently Thunder went under. So what? So from watching this, what they did after this and before it, they didn't know what they were going to do. So they were surprise. So they taped some Nitros before and some Thunders after, and would actually fill out the stories. So a lot of this stuff was actually filmed out of sequence. So, yeah, I know. Imagine showing up for that and you're like, what is going on? So, a lot of the stuff that happened on this show wouldn't be addressed or would have already been addressed earlier on in the night or just afterwards because of the way they were taping everything.
Bizarre. It's one of the things that, I'd heard that they because they were hemorrhaging money, they decided to stop, or not stop Thunder, but that Thunder would be taped along with Nitro.
Yeah.
But apparently that only made Thunder even worse because that's a 6-hour filming thing now. And by the time it comes around to Thunder, like, the crowd's just dead.
I remember I went to the Impact Zone a couple of times, and it was mad because when you're there for 6 hours taping and it's months out in advance, and you're like, it makes wrestling seem really fake. Like, I love the Impact Zone. I really did. I thought it was great. But I mean, like, it makes wrestling seem so fake when you see them come out. Like, I know it's very hard to explain. It's like you've seen them have this match, and then they come out and they're wearing different clothes, and you're like, this. It just breaks. It breaks the illusion.
Hi, folks. It's Thursday.
Yeah, it breaks the illusion completely. You're like, no. Your brain rejects it. You're like, no. So
it's one thing that worries me about Rampage. I really think that they need to get to the stage now where Rampage is separate. It's doing its own
thing.
Touring. I know it's only an hour show, but sure, do you know what? Tape Rampage and Dark.
Yeah.
And then leave Dynamite to be its own.
I think they'll do that with Ring of Honor. I think that will kind of make it level itself out eventually,
Yeah, I hope so, because I think Rampage could be an awesome show, but you can just tell sometimes that the crowd is spent.
So, speaking of which, Kevin Nash, Goldberg, and Scott Steiner. So, Goldberg apparently had an injury, and they sold that he was in a car crash or something. And he came out with his ribs eventually. But this is where, for me, and I was watching that What Culture video, and I agree with Simon on it. He's like, this is when WCW died, and I agree.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just incomprehensible. It's literally like someone stopping whatever show you're watching on Netflix, just say you're watching a movie on Netflix, and the whole cast just stop and look at the camera and go, so look, none of this is real, and you're an idiot for thinking it is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they did.
So this is obviously, and I hope modern wrestling learns from this. So this was again another Russo behind the scenes smarky thing, something that he was doing kind of as a wink and a nod to the people on the message boards, who kind of know the backstage stories, but that is a very, very small percentage of the actual fan base.
I mean, man, look, like, legitimately, does anyone over the age of, 12 think wrestling is real?
No,
is that ever, a thing that... And it's one thing that even people say, you watch wrestling, it's like, that's not why you watch wrestling. Not why you watch movies, either. Everyone knows the Avengers aren't real. They still watch them. It's
not a documentary.
No, and I'm just like, it's such a weird thing to engage in as a company. You know what I mean? It's like...
Yeah. But I hope, in terms of modern wrestling, I hope that they learn from that you don't need to placate the small crowd of very vocal fans. So apparently on Twitter, 80% of the content on Twitter is generated by 20% of the users.
Oh, I believe that.
And I really, really hope that the likes of Tony Khan, who are big wrestling historians, I hope he's looking at this and he knows that no matter what the hell is being said on Twitter, that is not reflective of the fan base at large. That's a small vocal minority.
I mean, there is certain things that could be done. For example, Triple H a couple of years ago had that promo where it's like, me and my friend Mark, we're going to stop watching.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, that's pretty clever, right? That's a funny little line. But,
yeah,
I
like Jade Cargill's manager, Smart Mark Sterling.
Yeah, little nods and winks are grand. But this, it just... Again, it's like watching the Battle of New York in Avengers, and them all just stopping and going, call them by their real names. Oh, hey Chris, Robert, this is great. Yeah. So look.
So for any listeners who don't know what we're referring to or haven't seen the match, what happens is Goldberg comes out, scraps a bit with Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash goes to put him in the jackknife powerbomb, and then rather than going up for the jackknife, Goldberg pushes him off, says, "Oh, this is bullshit." Walks out of the ring. Russo comes running down and tells him, "Get back in that ring, do your job." He tells him to F off.
Yeah.
And the commentators the whole time are going, "Oh my God, folks, we don't know what's happening. This is real. They've gone off script.
Real.
They've gone off script. Goldberg's being so unprofessional." And I'm like, "Oh, you just killed it dead." And the worst part is that whatever with the guys in these match, and like you said at the start, Scott Steiner come out and worked his arse off. Booker T and Jeff Jarrett have to go out next and have a match for a world title when you have just told everyone that the match is phony, that the title is phony, that none of it matters.
Yeah. And that's it. And that's and that's when the whole company, because you can't come back from that. You genuinely can't come back from that. It's like, there's certain things that like it's that Rubicon moment, where you cross it and it's like, there you go, that's it, and the cat was out. And I know some people can say, oh, well, Vince McMahon did that with his speech going, pulling the curtain back and you're tired of having your intelligence insulted, blah, blah, blah. But there's a difference between, now I don't think Vince should have done that anyway. That was a weird thing to do at the time, but they never did it during a match, where they're like, oh.
And even with we think you're tired of having your intelligence insulted, like you could take that as, oh, we're going to start doing more complex stuff and less cartoonish stuff. They overtly said this is fake. What is happening in the ring is fake.
Yeah. It just, and again, I agree with the analysis. This is where WCW died, because you cannot, and you notice that no one since, even at the depths of TNA when it was bad, has ever done this again, because you cannot sell back from this.
Yeah, it's like you say, it killed, like, so then Goldberg walks out, right? You've done your big angle. Russo has got his moment in front of the crowd. Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner have to go on and have a match now.
Yeah.
Like, have to finish this match.
Yeah.
But you've just told so now you're looking at these, like, you're just looking at two grown men playing.
Yeah, pretending to fight.
It's
like, I can't imagine what it would have been like for the crowd, because obviously, WCW didn't pipe the commentary through the arena like some places would.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, I actually don't think that's a bad idea. I think that should just be done all the time, because the poor crowd have no idea what's going on sometimes.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, so as far as the crowd know, what happened here was Goldberg escaped the jackknife.
Yeah.
And then just left.
Yeah. It's like, hey, where's Goldberg going? He was winning. It's so bizarre. No wonder the crowd didn't know what was going on, because they didn't. No one was like, here's what's going on. And it wasn't like Vince Russo came out and cut a promo and going, you cannot leave. You are a WCW contracted wrestler. Go out or whatever. But even then, you can't. Nobody watches it because you want to talk about contracts. They watch it because they want to see who's the best wrestler.
This was
terrible.
Terrible idea. Everything about this was terrible. And again, it was all done to appeal to a handful of goddamn neckbeards on WCW online forums at the time.
Yeah, and look, it's a shame, because as you said, the next match, Booker T and Jeff Jarrett, despite the ref bumps, which were completely unnecessary, despite the run-ins, which were completely unnecessary, despite all the weapon spots were completely unnecessary, it actually wasn't a bad match. By comparison, it was 14 minutes that was actually very watchable. And you're like, stop booking bullshit that doesn't matter.
Well, look, after that, Omega and Ibushi could have come out and it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Like, it was... Yeah. So, yeah, like, Booker T and Jeff Jarrett, if you just watch this match first on its own, like, apart from all the usual, like you said, WCW stuff, run-ins, bumps, all that crack, they had a decent match, but...
They did, yeah.
Nobody cared.
It was horrible. Booker T getting the big win.
No reaction when he won.
No one cared. Literally, no one cared.
And then people started chucking rubbish in the ring.
Now, I think the reason why they did that, I don't think that was because Booker T won. I think they were just so fed up about
the whole
what
thing
they
was
saw.
crap. Yeah, and it wasn't. I don't think they were throwing it at Booker T.
Or
I think they were throwing it at WCW.
Yeah, and it sucks, because it's like, it's hard to explain, folks. So the crowd didn't care about either one of them, because they were so annoyed about what they had just seen, throughout the whole show. As Martin said, Booker T wins, no reaction. But then when they realised, oh, that was it, that's the end of the show, that's when the pellets of rubbish came through. Yeah. The biggest heel of the night was the show.
Oh, yeah. Russo.
Well, not even Russo as such. Like, I mean, the entire show, like,
Oh.
name one thing that you could point to as satisfying. You know, none of it. So, look,
None.
and again, 6,000 people, 2,000 just didn't pay, 4,000 may have paid, we don't know.
So another another 2,000 just didn't show up.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know, I'm probably sitting there, they're like, should have stayed at home. You know, again, and at least Michael Buffer made his 10 million, so he was happy.
Yeah.
He was probably the only one who was happy.
But it's,
you know,
like, of all the, like, swerves and things you can do, it was so stupid because, like, yeah, again, the analogy of, say, an Avengers movie. You're sitting watching an Avengers movie, you've been sucked into it, you're following the characters and the stories, and then the movie stopped. And, you know, the director comes out and says, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
This is a bunch of superheroes in costumes. You're a grown man.
Yeah.
Go home and do something useful."
Yeah,
that's what it was like.
It wasn't like a Deadpool joke going, "Hey, you know,"
No,
you
it was
know.
just an
It was
insult
like
to the
it was
fans.
insult, and there is actually a conspiracy theory online, which I don't know, man. I kind of believe it, where this was booked to actually be an anti-pay-per-view. This was booked to actually, and the only person who wasn't told about it was Scott Steiner.
Oh,
Where, like,
Scott.
they poor Scott. I feel so bad for Scott Steiner. And even if he did tell him, he probably wouldn't have made a difference. But I mean, as you said, this was booked to be like, oh well, you think it's bad? Well, we're gonna book a show that is you're gonna hate so much. That's an anti-show. And I'm like, okay, well, who's that to? You have WWE beating your brains out because they're just giving a good product, and you book this garbage.
And it's not even like so bad it's like funny, or so bad it's just really deflating. Like, I never want to see this again.
So the tagline is, "Our time is now," as you said, New Blood Rising, an angle that was dead. So, like, who's this even for? I mean, who's it even for? You know, I can't imagine from a creative standpoint, Vince Russo sitting there and like, right, well, we have this show coming up. Okay, what's it called? New Blood Rising. Okay, we don't have that anymore. Well, call it something else. You know, because they would have to get the ring and everything made up. You know, like, call it something else or book it, or, you know. But again, I think his whole thing was, oh, this is going to mess with the marks. You're like,
oh, yeah.
You know, okay. You know,
And again, they're a real small percentage of the fan base.
I mean, look, we're talking here 22 years later, right, about a show that happened. And it's not that it's aged well, it's just bizarre. It's bizarre that it happened. It's bizarre that it was booked. It's bizarre that it was paid for. And it's bizarre that... And look, maybe Goldberg was right. Maybe he was like, look, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. Now, here...
It's bizarre that at no stage along the process did nobody with any amount of influence go, lads, what are we at here?
You think someone would have said, listen, no, like, some of these ideas are good. Well, and they did. That's what Vince McMahon did. Some of these ideas are good. Others aren't. We're not doing them.
Yeah. Well, I'm convinced. I have now convinced myself that that's what Sting did. Sting saw that this is a train wreck and said, I'm getting in and out.
Yeah. It's like, listen, Demon, you can come with me. We can go to get waffles. And that's it. That's probably what happened. He's probably like, no, I'm not staying around for this too much longer. I feel bad for Muda though. He's like, really, okay, at least I have this belt now. But
apparently he didn't have great things to say about WCW after this.
Yeah, no, it's the poster's hilarious. Poor Vampiro, who's only on it for like 5 minutes.
Why is he the? Just none of it made any sense.
No, I think that's the tagline for this week, folks. New Blood Rising. None of it makes any sense. But folks, if this is your first time checking us out, thank you very much for listening as me and Martin try to fumble our way through this absolute train wreck of a show. Train wreck of a show. I'm sorry you had to watch it on your birthday, Martin, but I hope it made COVID a little bit easier for you.
Look, like I said, this birthday was a write-off anyway.
But look, as I said, Aaron, we are going to finish out this year of 2000, and then we'll probably swap on to something else. Maybe go into WCW, some better WCW, some ECW, some WWE, TNA, or whatever. Let us know, guys. You can be reached rewind@gmail.com, the wrestling rewind@gmail.com _ the rewind on Twitter. Nerd to Know Media is where our shows are as well. If this is your first time checking out the show, please do go over to YouTube, Twitch, and subscribe. That helps us a lot, and also you'll be able to interact with us as we're doing the show live. And yeah, again, spread the word of the podcast, the only wrestling podcast made by fans who don't hate wrestling. And look, even still, this is...
And that's why we're so annoyed by this.
Exactly.
Because we love wrestling.
We do love wrestling. And here's the thing. I didn't hate the show, genuinely. I was disappointed. I'm more annoyed that it happened because it's an anti-wrestling show. And not in a cool, subversive way. Just in a... As you said, imagine watching the Avengers and them just stopping and going, "You're morons." You know? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And that's what it is. Or watching the new Batman movie and, Matt Reeves come out being like, "That's your man who was in Twilight. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He's
a fella dressed up. Look, he's wearing eyeliner.
Yeah.
Like,
come on.
What are you at?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your life?
Exactly. It's that kind of thing. It's like, no one wants that. It's just, it's not a thing that you do. And the fact that it happened is just bizarre. It's bizarre. And again, but the legacy of this show is that it never happened again.
Yeah.
Not one time, no matter how crazy Vince Russo would get or how bad TNA would get, they would never again do this.
No, and we saw like little bits and pieces where like WWE had that thing where The Undertaker came out as Mark Calloway and they were like, "Mark, we're worried about you," and blah blah blah. But nothing ever went to this level, this on the nose, and this directly insulting to the fan base.
That's what I mean. Like, even as pejorative as WWE can be to fans, it's never and again, a lot of that would be, "Oh, we wanted this person to win," and they push her. It's never like on camera where they just actually say it. Again, it was such a bad decision, but it kind of gives an oversight of how bad WCW was, where it's like, this is going down anyway. Nothing can stop this from falling. So they're just throwing it at the wall.
Yeah, like we said at the start, nobody cared anymore.
Yeah.
There was one part after Goldberg had left where Kevin Nash was pinning Steiner.
Oh,
and Steiner's
your one was supposed to break it. And she didn't, and he's like, "Get in here!"
Nash just looks at her and shouts,
"Get in here!" Yeah,
like he just doesn't care anymore.
No, I feel sorry for everyone there, but again, they are millionaires who definitely got paid, so you can only feel so sorry for them. But it's more like the Umfellas, like 3 Count, who I feel sorry for. I'm like, you're not a millionaire. None of you are. Combined, you're not. And this is what you have. Shivani as well. Heartbroke for Shivani.
You got to listen to his.
I'm gonna listen to it after this.
But he's so devastated by just this whole period of his life.
Oh man, it's horrible. It really is. But like, again, I didn't hate it. It's a good historical archive. I would say, look, I would watch it. It gets a, what did they used to call it in school when someone didn't complete something? Was it an NG? Yeah, this show gets an NG for me. Not good, not complete. I had a friend one time who, like, when his junior cert or something, he didn't repeat something, he got like a bunch of NGs.
So they added up, apparently, that, and like, obviously star ratings are subjective, but they added up the star ratings for the entire show.
Yeah.
And the whole show got 7 stars. Like the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you add all the stars from each match.
No, it gets an NG for me. Incomplete. Because for me, this wasn't a wrestling show.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was an anti-wrestling show, and it's. Yeah.
It was sports entertainment taken to its extreme conclusion.
I would say taken to its logical conclusion. This is WWE. This is what WWE is going to turn into, I'd say, eventually. Like, eventually. This is where it's going. This is the same.
But surely even they're smart enough to go, look, we can rail the fans up. We can not give them what they want. Like, we can make fun of them or call them stupid for liking certain people or wanting certain things to happen. But at no point can you actually turn to the fans and say, you are stupid for liking wrestling. You are stupid for liking this as a whole.
Dude, I think that is on the cards.
Oh, God.
I think that is on the cards because, again, when you're it's wrong to do direct comparisons. We don't do that on the show. But in this specific case, when you're looking at what AEW is doing, which is literally just being exactly what the fans have wanted for the past 15 years, if not more, WWE exists to spite themselves. And I wouldn't be shocked if in a couple of years, when AEW, again, all that has to happen is AEW takes over WWE. And that will probably happen soon, eventually. I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking there where some poor you-know-what has to say these lines. Because it couldn't even be Vince himself. He could just be like, well, here's what I really think. And who's going to tell him otherwise? Because this all came down from someone not having accountability. Someone should have said to Russo, absolutely no way. You're not insulting the fans we have left. Which weren't a lot, you know?
No.
And it's just, I would say, look, as I said, it gets an NG for me. It gets a complete incomplete. Go back and do it again, is what I would say if I was correct in this.
Yeah. It's an FO from me.
What's that?
FO.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. But I would say, look, watch it if you haven't, because it is one of those things that you have to watch, because it's just so unbelievable. And it doesn't get worse from here. This is the absolute depths of WCW. The depths of wrestling. Actually, this is this is the floor of wrestling, right? And I would say watch it. Again, there are some good moments in it. I'd say the ladder match, fair play to the lads. It's always good to see Sting. Vampiro looks really cool. Great to see Great Muta, because Muta's awesome. I feel sorry for everybody else.
Yeah. Watch
the
Booker and Jarrett match first.
That's a great match as well. Oh yeah, that's a great match. Again, Booker and Jarrett. Jarrett gets a bad rep and he shouldn't. Booker gets a worse rep and he shouldn't either. It was just what they were and what they were doing, But anyway, Martin, before we get out of here, sir, we've gone long today, so obviously I'll be cutting this up for Phoenix FM listeners.
No worries.
Podcast listeners, of course, again, if you have anything you want to talk about, please do. The _rewind is the best way to reach us. My Twitter is @DaraWV. Martin's Twitter is SlobberNicker.
Yeah, that's KNICKER. Just in case any pronunciation makes that sound like something that shouldn't.
And of course, Nerd to Know Media is where you can reach us as well. Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yes, I just want to say to everybody that hard work pays off, dreams come true, bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
That's fair. That's very fair. And happy birthday to Martin as well, guys. If you want to send him a tweet, do.
Carmaget.
And again, hashtag save Dave. Dave would have loved this. He really would have. He would have been all over this. Probably would have had some great things to say. But
Dave would have 5-starred this.
Oh, he would have. Yeah, everything about it. He would have been all over it. In fact, when he hears that we've covered it, he's going to be really upset that he wasn't here. We're going to try to get Dave on for WrestleMania. Obviously, we are going to cover WrestleMania this year. I have no idea what's even on the show because I don't watch it. But we are going to cover it anyway.
Cody.
Stardust. Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to see Stardust back. But yeah, folks, we'll be back obviously to talk about Fall Brawl is next. Fall Brawl 2000.
Do you know what, this show New Blood Rising gets so much of the attention that I actually don't know anything about Fall Brawl. I don't know if it was good, don't know if it was bad, don't
Either
know.
Way. Again, my process for this is I watch them completely cold and then do a bit of research afterwards, because again, it's been 20 something years since I've seen these shows, so I'm not watching them on purpose. I'm going in completely blind, and this was the umpteenth example of it, where it's just like, wow.
Well,
okay.
that's the safest way to do it, because if you'd have done any research on this, you wouldn't have then sat down and watched it.
No. Once I saw Judy Bagwell on a pole, I'm like, I'm going to stop, because I will not watch this show if I research any further on this. But again, folks, I want to thank you very, very much for listening in. We'll be back next week here on the Wrestling Rewind, the True Penny Channel, Phoenix FM, and of course Nerd to Know Media. Talk to you there, guys.
Keep on that.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.